Hi, my name's Tristan. I'm the husband of Jill and the father of five precious girls. And Maria was our third daughter. And I do want to thank you for coming. We are grateful for all the love and prayers and support that have just been poured out on us these past few days. Specifically, I want to thank Jay Klein and our church family and the school and so many of you who've just been especially present with us in our mourning. I want to share Maria's eulogy. Eulogy comes from the Greek. The prefix is eu, meaning good, and logos, meaning word. And I want to share a good word about my daughter, Maria. Our daughter, Jovi, who's sitting up here in the front row, is 7 years old. And she has been an easy child since the day she was born, actually even before she was born. We were hoping that she would be born 5 days early on June 2nd, 5 days before Jill's due date. And that was her cousin's birthday, and it was a Monday, and we just thought it'd be a great day for her to be born. And she came on June 2nd. Like, she was obedient from the womb, and she was an easy baby. Early on, she slept through the night. She was just easy. And then we had her sister, Tana, 2 years later. And Tana was a little tougher, but Tana's middle name is Joy, and Tana just loves to laugh, and she always is telling us jokes, and she wasn't that hard of a kid. And we kind of became cocky parents. Like, we just thought, like, it's just not that hard. And we saw some of you post things on social media like, oh, being a parent is so difficult, and it's just so hard. And we didn't say anything, but we kind of looked down on you like you were sissies, like, come on, it's not that hard. And then God gave us Maria, and we were humbled. Maria was a blessing, and she was a tough baby. She was fussy from the beginning. She came into our lives in a very tumultuous time. The day she was born, Jill's mother, her grandmother, had to be taken to the hospital immediately for cancer treatments and didn't get to see her new granddaughter for quite a few weeks after that. She was fussy, and then a month after she was born, our house flooded, and so it was just a difficult season that she was born into. Maybe that's what caused her to be so strong and to be so strong-willed from the beginning. Some of you that know her and knew her and loved her have used the word spunky to describe her. And if you knew Maria, that is a great word to describe who she was. To give an illustration of this, most children learn a very simple word early on, and it's a 2-letter word, and it's worse than pretty much all the 4-letter words out there to any parent. And you know what I'm talking about. It's the little word no. And that was one of Maria's first words. But pretty soon after that, being the strong-willed little girl that she was, she added to it. And it became no way. And so for like 4 months when she was a toddler, we would say, Maria, it's time to eat supper. Are you ready for supper? And she'd say, no way. And then we'd say, it's time for bed. And she would say, no way. And that was just her from a very, very early on. She was our slowest and most difficult daughter to potty train. She would often say, no, I'm just going to poopy in my pants. And because she just figured she was going to do what she was going to do, and we weren't going to tell her otherwise. Although I'm thinking Sadie might give her a run for her money on late to potty train. We're still working on that. We were currently trying to get her to stop sucking her thumb. And for our other girls, they've all sucked thumbs or fingers, and we would put medical tape on them so that it would remind them not to suck their thumb. And Maria just, see, the other girls, it worked. Like, we tape up their thumbs, and they just stop sucking their thumbs or their fingers. Well, we would find, like, pieces of medical tape just anywhere in our house, because she just figured out how to unwrap it, go to bed, and then she'd stick it on her bunk bed and just go right back to sucking her thumbs and her fingers. And she just was spunky. Well, she was strong to whomever she met. This past summer, Jill and I got an opportunity to take a 10-day sabbatical trip to Oxford, England. And we left our girls behind for 10 days. And family was watching our girls for that 10 days, and my parents came up to stay with them. And the night before we were to leave, I tucked Maria into bed. And I said, Maria, we are going to miss you. And could you do me a favor? Are you going to be a really good girl for Nini and Papa while we're gone? We're going to miss you. Are you going to be a good girl? And she paused, and she stopped, and she thought about it. And she looked at me and said, no, I'm going to tell Nini no. And she just knew, like, she was honest, right? And so, sure enough, while we were gone, she locked my parents out of the bedroom, refused to let them in. My dad had to remove the doorknob in order to get in, and that was our strong and challenging little Maria. But she also had the capacity to love. And those of you who knew her knew that she was bold and confident, but she loved. And our neighbor Tamara just sent me this note, and I had forgot about it today. She said this summer she got a little knock at her door, and she went and answered the door, and it was Maria. And Maria said, hey, Tamara, you got any Freezy Pops in there for me? She wasn't afraid to ask and just go up to anybody. She loved making new friends. She was a friendly little girl. And one of her best friends is Chaz. And she bonded with him when she was about 18 months old. And she would tell me all the time, Chaz is my best friend. Now, if you don't know Chaz is not a little kid. Chaz, well, I don't know how old you are, Chaz. I know you're here. But he has grandchildren, so that just Chaz Norman was one of her best buddies, and she finally did learn Chaz's wife's name. It used to just be Chaz's wife, but it's Carol, and so she loved them. In fact, at Riverview, Maria, our other girls are more passive and a little bit more sensitive, and Maria was just would go and just kind of wander, and a lot of times she would say, I want to go sit with Chaz, and so she would go and sit with Chaz and Carol during the singing. And so the other week, it's about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Jill looked over, and there was Maria sitting with 2 men who she had no idea who they were. Like, she had been sitting with Maria, and then Chaz let her go forward, and she was coming to sit with us, but she saw, 2 random guys, and I don't know if you guys are here. Jill was like, do you know them? And I said, I've met the one guy one time, and there's just little Maria smiling at him, and they're smiling, and just like they're best friends, and Jill's like, I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with this, and so we had to have the talk with her afterwards about, we know you love people, and we know you love making friends, but you need to come and ask mommy and daddy before you just wander the world. Well, her affection for Chaz was often competed with her affection for Teddy, and Teddy was actually a 4-year-old little buddy, and they were best friends. And we found this note. I'll show it to you here. She made this note the week that she died for Teddy, and Jill, my wife, wrote the note. It says, Teddy, thanks for being my friend. I love running with you. And then she signed her name Maria, and it's got princess stickers on it. I'm not sure Teddy would be a fan of those, but this was the edited version, because what Jill told me that she really wanted to write just sounded way too romantic. What she really wanted to write was, I want Teddy to know I love him so much, and even when I'm 4 or 5, I will still love him. And so Jill edited it down to, I love running with you. So, as any father of any daughter would want his wife to do. She was strong and spunky, but very girly. She loved princess dresses and would wear multiple princess dresses every day. And as a father of 5 daughters, we have a few of those around. One Sunday morning, she came up, not in a princess dress, but one of her favorite dresses. And she said, "This is a very beautiful dress. I think Teddy will like it." And she was convinced when she grew up she was going to be a mermaid. She loved watching Toon Toons, as has already been mentioned, more than just about anything. She loved playing Tickle Monster, playing the story game. She loved dancing. And we're heartbroken. And she's left a hole in our family that can't be filled. I never thought that a family of 6 would feel as small as it does right now. But we are grateful for the almost 4 years that we had with her. And we wouldn't change anything. And we wouldn't avoid the pain that we're feeling right now because we loved her with all our hearts. I want to just explain for a minute the rest of the time of worship that we have with a quick story. 2 weeks ago tonight, actually it was about right now, 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday night, before Maria got sick, 3 days before she died, and she was healthy, I drove our oldest 2 daughters and their friends to dance class. And at dance class, I ended up sitting by Melanie Lindquist. And I've gotten to know Eric and Melanie a little bit over these past couple of years. And most of you guys know this precious family. For those of you who don't, they lost their son, Evan, just about 6 years ago. And I sat by Melanie that day, and we began talking. And she began to we just started talking about Evan. And she allowed me to kind of enter into her grief for those moments. And we talked, and she shared her heart with me, and she cried, and I teared up, and I never met Evan. But I appreciated her heart, and we shared for kind of the whole dance class. And I texted her when I got home, and I said, thank you for sharing your heart. And she texted in response and said she felt like God had given us a chance to talk, and it had been a rough week, and she was grateful for our time together. At the end of our conversation, I asked Melanie, I said, hey, I don't mean to be trite or give you a book that, that'll try to solve your grief, but I said there's a book called Lament for a Son by Nicholas Walderstorff, and as a pastor, it's the best book I've ever read on grief, and she hadn't heard of it, and so when I got home, I got on my computer, and I was the conversation we had was still fresh on my mind, and so I got on Amazon, and I thought about this book that had just helped me so much as a pastor, and I thought, well, I'm just going to order a copy for Eric and Melanie just as a gesture of friendship. And so 3 days later, the night that Maria died, after the medics and the first responders had all gone, and the house was silent, there was this book sitting on my piano about a loss of a child that had been delivered earlier that day. And for several days, we were just in shock, we're still in shock. We're still broken. And we didn't know what to pray other than just, God, help us. But we took out this little book, and at the back of the book, Walderstorff and his family had a requiem written for their son, Eric. And my wife and I just began to pray those words, and it became our prayer. And And we thought for this time of funeral and memorial for our little girl, that this prayer would be our guide. And so for the rest of this time of worship, we just invite you into these words that there are no answers to our questions, but this is where we're grieving.